Hey, today we're going to start on 7.4, properties of special parallelograms. Okay, those are our learning goals in the sections out of the book. Tell your neighbor what some special parallelograms are. I've heard 3 special parallelograms. So what's one? I've heard 3 of them. Rhombuses. Another? Rhombuses. Rhombi. Okay. Rectangles. Yes. Squares. Yes. Is a trapezoid? Trapezoid is not a parallelogram. Has to have 2 sets of parallel sides. Rectangles, rhombuses, and squares. Isn't a square a rhombus? Oh, what's a rhombus? A rhombus is a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides. Isn't a square a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides?
I knew it was a square. Yeah.
So a rhombus is a square is a rhombus. Does a rhombus have to be a square? No. All right. Well, it's kind of like that rectangle square thing as well. Okay, if you look at page 312 of your student journal. 212. You guys ever wonder if teachers, like I didn't do it there, but do you ever wonder if teachers ever make mistakes just to see how many students they can get to freak out?
Probably.
It's kind of fun. I mean, like if I said open up to page 1092, you'd be like, 1092? What? Gee. Okay. All right. Hey, you guys came up with those 3. I didn't have to really do much there. That's pretty easy teaching right there. Okay. Hey, rhombus, 4 congruent sides. Square, 4 congruent sides, and 4 right angles.
What does a rhombus look exactly like a parallelogram?
What's that?
What does a rhombus look exactly like a parallelogram?
Because it is a parallelogram, man.
Yeah, but a rectangle.
It's like you being looking like a human. Because you are. Crazy, right? You mean it looks like the typical parallelogram?
Yeah.
It's true. Hey, a rectangle has 4 right angles. Hey, notice if you put these 2 things together, the properties of a rectangle and the properties of a rhombus, you get a square. Okay? All right. I want you to take a look at the corollaries on the bottom of that page. Just read them to yourself. See if there's anything amazing that comes to mind when you read those. Okay, so really when you read those 2 corollaries, it pretty much says what we just said. Right? And if you read the next corollary, it also says what we just talked about, where a square has to have 4 right angles and 4 congruent sides. The things that are really new to you today probably are the 3 theorems that follow that. So on page 213, yes, 213, okay, there are 3 theorems. I want you to read through them and make any notes to yourself to clarify what is actually being said there. Should only be 3 theorems. There's 1 corollary at the top. Those 3 theorems. Hey, guys, let's go through these real quick. Theorem 7:11, the rhombus diagonals theorem. A parallelogram is a rhombus if and only if its diagonals are perpendicular. Okay? So if the diagonals cross at a right angle and it's a parallelogram, then it's a rhombus. That's one way of showing it's a rhombus, is perpendicular diagonals. Okay? Theorem 7:12, the rhombus opposite angles theorem. This one says that if you have a parallelogram and diagonals bisect a pair of the angles, then it is a rhombus. So if your diagonals bisect opposite angles, then it forms a rhombus. Or it makes it a rhombus. Okay? And the last one, the rectangle diagonal theorem. If the diagonals are congruent, then it is a rectangle. In a parallelogram, if your diagonals are congruent, then it's a rectangle. Amazing stuff? Okay, in the textbook, they actually kind of go through the proofs on those. If you want to check those out. We're not going to go through them in class. What I would like you to do is kind of apply some of this on page 214 of your student journal. Okay? So right now, 1 and 2 on your own there. For those of you struggling getting started, it'll help if you actually draw out the figures. All right, let's see how you did. If I were to draw out number 1, I could actually draw that and make that rhombus have 4 right angles, which makes it a square, which means it has the properties of all the rectangles as well. So for any rhombus, MNOP, MO is congruent to MP. Okay, that's sometimes true. That happens whenever the rhombus is a square. Okay, so when all 4 sides are equal and have right angles, then your diagonals are congruent. Number 2, for any rectangle PQRS, decide whether PQS is congruent to RSQ. What do you guys think? Sometimes, always? Always? Sometimes? How many say always? How many say sometimes? The answer is always. Because when you draw it out, you get alternate interior angles that are congruent when formed with the parallel line. So you have your transversal, you get alternate interior angles. So by definition, opposite sides of the rectangle are parallel. Very good. All right. Any questions on those two? Okay. Why don't you take a look at number 3, 4, and 5. Give yourselves a couple minutes to work on those. Okay, so our diagonals intersect at E. What is BC? 9. How do we know that? Good. It's a rhombus. All sides are congruent. So that's 9. That's 9. That's 9. Okay. What's AC? 14. Yeah. How do we know that? Okay. Has to be congruent to AE. Okay. Oops. That part has to be congruent to AE, and then we double that. We get 14. Okay, what's ADC? Ooh, some dissension there. ADC. So this guy right here. Yeah. Is it 88? Don't think it's 88. Yeah? 82? Might be 82.
I say
91. 91? 90? No, we gotta put a little more time into it. Okay, talk with your neighbor. Come up with. We had a bunch of different answers there. Hey, for those of you struggling, what's this angle right here? What do we know for sure that this figure is? A rhombus. We know that. What do we know about diagonals of rhombuses? They bisect the angle. If this is 44, this is 44. And that's 44, and that's 44. Which makes that 88, and that 88. Which means this is, those are congruent. Is it 92? What do all the angles of a quadrilateral add up to? 360, and we're subtracting 88 twice, or 166, which leaves us with?
176.
Thank you, 176. Okay, which leaves us with what? 184, and then we have to cut that in half to share it between those two. 184 divided by 2 is 92 degrees. 92. Now we heard 91. We heard 90. Heard 88. We never heard 92. It is 92. Who was? He was not.
Y'all know I meant to say.
Were you, Jeremiah? Were you saying it loud?
Yes. Hollow is a solid 91.
Well, like before I explained it. Yeah? Like the first time. Jeremiah, awesome, man. I'll never say anything bad the rest of the period About a Cowboy fan. Okay? All right. That's a bad attitude right there, Carlo. Let's be nice about it. All right. 6, 7, and 8. Give it a go. All right. Hey, this one is 59 degrees. This one is 17. And this one is 59 degrees. Okay, the work there, just so you can see it. You have your 90-degree angle because it's a rectangle. Plus something equals 180. Okay, these two have to add up to 180. Okay, so if we know we've got our 31 there, all right, that allows us to figure out that other piece there. So if this one's 31, we know that because of alternate interior. Then we know that it has to be 59. Okay, any questions on those? All right, the last 3. Let's finish them up. While you're doing that, I'm going to hand out today's assignment.
Like I could say.
Okay, what is PK?
1/2.
1/2. Same measure in squares. What's PKN? 90. Rectangles and squares intersect at right angles. The diagonals do. MN, K. 45. Diagonals are, your angles are bisected, and it has to be a right angle to be a square, so 45 degrees. Any questions? All right, off you go.